conscious discipline and our time together. Today we're going to talk about the seventh and final power of conscious discipline. It's the power of intention. And it's the power behind the skill of consequences, and ask us to view mistakes as opportunities to learn. Now, I'm really excited about talking today in this webinar about consequences because there seems to be some confusion out there. I've heard such things as there's no consequences in conscious discipline. Conscious discipline doesn't believe in consequences, and this can't be further from the truth. So I'm just so excited, and I'm Becky A, and I approve of this message. So let's get to it. There are 7 powers and 7 skills in the Conscious Discipline program. Consequences is the last of the skills. The power of intention is the last of the powers, not because they're the least important, it's because all the other ones before it are necessary so that consequences can actually be effective. Now, let's get some things straight about consequences. Often we think consequences are something adults make up, grab out of the sky like a bolt of lightning and throw down and strike a child with. Well, consequences are happening all the time. Every thought, every feeling, every action we have generates a consequence within our body and within our external behavior. So that's something we definitely need to clear up. A lot of people say, well, when in conscious discipline do we nail them? When do we nail the kids? And if you think about that, nailing them means, implies I'd like for them to feel just a teensy bit of pain. So when you're talking about nailing children, you're talking about punishments. Okay, and we're talking about consequences. So effective consequences is the goal of conscious discipline. And effective consequences means that I have a behavior and it has an impact on others and myself, and I can reflect on it and choose a different strategy next time. Now, we've all had consequences where we had a consequence of behavior and we repeated that behavior again and again and again, unless you're extremely different than me. We've all experienced the consequences of our actions and repeated them over and over and over again. For example, we've all possibly eaten a little too much and experienced the consequence of that. We've all, at times, possibly drank a little too much and experienced the consequence of that. Many of us have stayed up hours and hours and hours at night doing whatever, and we experienced the consequence of that. I think something we can all relate to is that we've all also screamed and yelled at those that we love the most, and we repeated it again and again. Then we've also had a consequence, and we've gone, something was different in that experience, and we actually changed our behavior. We've had those experiences too. So what's the difference between repeating the same behavior over and over, and even though we had painful consequences, or actually having a consequence of a behavior and making a change? Well, 3 things make the difference. First, if we're going to have effective consequences, we must become conscious of our choices and the impact on others or ourselves, instead of blaming others. You made me stay out so late. I never would have done this if it wasn't for you. And you did this and you did that. Instead of blaming others, we have to take that personal responsibility of our choices. And so we have to stay in this higher center of our brain just so that we can make a choice and so that we can see from other people's perspective. Second, we have to feel connected enough to even care. So, oh yeah, okay, I ruined your life. What's that to me? I don't care. Or you'll have kids all the time. Well, we're going to call your parents at school. We'll go, all right, well then we're going to call your parents. Go ahead, I don't care. We're going to put your name on the board. I don't care. We're going to flip your card. I don't care. You're not going out to recess. Nothing to me. So we have to be connected enough to care about the consequences that we cause ourselves and others. And the last one is the third one. We have to be motivated by our internal state to make a change. We have to feel a little angst with a consequence, not what you think I should feel. Because often we're like, well, you should feel horrible, and look what you've done, and you've disappointed your father and me and all this. Well, that's your angst about me. I need to feel my angst about my choices. So if we can get all three of those in place, if you just take a second, because I'm going to stop for just a second, and I want you to think of the times in your life where you repeated and the times you actually changed, and see if you weren't on this side able to reflect on your choices. You cared enough about the impact, and you felt enough angst within you to motivate yourself to change. All right. So this is what we want to do for kids. Now, so I'm going to back up because I told you earlier, conscious discipline is all about consequences. It's all about setting up a child and a situation, a home and a school, so that all consequences are effective for all children. Nothing feels worse to a teacher, and certainly didn't to me because I am a teacher, is to have the same child get the same consequence each day. So in kindergarten they might have missed recess, but by second grade their card got flipped. By middle school they've got 85,000 demerits, and by high school they've dropped out. So there's a way that we can do this differently. And you know, as I always say, there's got to be a better way, and there is. Okay, so let's look kind of a overview of conscious discipline. Now, conscious discipline is based on the fact that our internal state dictates our behavior. And it's based on a brain model that helps us understand how that state would impact our behavior and our perceptual lens that we see life from. And this is important to understand because let's say a child has just hit someone and they're very upset and they're in a survival state. They felt threatened at some point and they struck back. If we deliver a consequence to a child in a survival state where they have a perceptual lens of threat, they're not going to be able to reflect on that choice. They're going to perceive it, the consequence, as another threat. And they'll go, you send me to the office, I'll get back at you tomorrow. Or at home, go ahead, take the computer, I'll get you back. Isn't over. So that just develops a cycle of revenge. Now let's take another internal state called the emotional state, which is triggered by the world not going our way. So we have a lens that the world's not going our way, and I'm taking it personally. You know why the world's not going my way? Because nobody cares. So if you deliver a consequence to a child in an emotional state, they have a filter across their face, and they're going to go, they're not going to reflect on what their behavior, they're not going to be motivated to change. They're sitting there going, you don't like me, you don't love me. The teacher always picks on me. So again, I deflect my ability to reflect. Then, so if a child is in the higher states, an integrated state, an executive state of their brain, the higher centers, when we give them a consequence, they go, oops, angst. Oh man, I kind of boogered that up. I need to rethink this because I sure would like to get my computer back. So it's important that we deliver consequences as an adult when we're in the higher centers of our brain, and that requires the power of intention. And it's important that a child receive a consequence when they're in the higher centers of the brain so they can reflect and choose instead of blame and deflect. And that's why in conscious discipline we have the 7 powers for a conscious adult. So we have the power of love, which says see the best. Well, that's going to help you. If you can see the best, you can stay in the higher centers of your brain. The power of free will says you can't make anyone change except yourself, so quit trying to make them change and focus on yourself. So that will help you. And of course now we have the power of intention. Another word, what is your intent as you approach this child? Is your intent to punish them? Make them feel pain for what they've done? To get them to feel guilty for this distress they've caused? To rescue them from the consequence so you run their homework to school so they don't feel any angst? Or is it to teach a child to feel that angst, reflect upon it, and make a change? So, the way you can tell the difference between a punishment and consequence, especially in conscious discipline, is punishments rely on judgment. I judge your behavior to be good or bad. If I judge it to be good, these things happen to you. If I judge it to be bad, these things happen to you. And of course we set up a two-tiered system. I have one moral responsibility to the good kids and a whole different set of principles and morals to the bad kids. I can just do whatever I got to do to get them to do whatever they're going to have to do. And that gets to be a two-tiered system that, as you look at it from each side, you're like, good people deserve good things, and if bad things happen to you, you must, i.e., be a bad person. Consequences, again, like I said, rely on reflection. Now, how do we get all this to happen? So, in conscious discipline, we have these 7 powers that keep us in this higher center. We also then have to deal with the fact that some kids just don't care. So in conscious discipline, we create a school family. And the school family is not based on rewards and punishments and competition and who's the best. It's based on caring and being helpful. So as you create this sense of school family, this sense of belonging, this sense of caring, you bring all these kids into the fold. So you've got some kids, I don't care. Well, we got to bring those into the fold because we want them to care so that when we give them a consequence, angst, it'll have an impact. Certainly want them to care because we love them. Now, so the culture of caring, it starts early, so we got to start real young with our kids creating this school family, and it lasts a lifetime. So what we do early really just carries on and on and on. So we need that culture of caring for these disconnected kids. Now, the last thing we need is the consequence to motivate kids. Now, often we think, and you're looking at the slide now, so if my choice is to ride my bike really fast down the street, and my parents may be hollering from the house, you better slow down, Becky, you're gonna fall, you're gonna kill yourself out there. Okay, so they may be, quote, helping. Okay. So what happens is I fall off my bike, and the first couple times I bounce into the grass. Well, nothing happens. And I'm just thinking, whee, yeah, baby, I'm going to go faster next time. So this last time I go down there, I fall off my bike, which is not the consequence. The consequence is how I feel about the fall. The first 2 times, I'm great, man, that was fun, bounced off the grass. Now this time I fell on the cement, took off half the skin on my leg. So now how do I feel about it? A lot of angst and pain, okay? So the true consequence of a choice is not the behavior you see, it's how you feel about the behavior. Another slide you're seeing right now. What if I was, my choice was to not study for a test? So I'm like, so now we tend to think the consequence is, well, you're going to pass or fail the test. Well, the true consequence is how you feel about the grade you got on the test. So it's important that we put children in touch with their emotions. So if a child comes to me with a report card that has a D on it, and I'm going, what? A D? Robert, you are smarter than this. You are so much better than this. And I knew it was all that time you spent swimming, and all the time you swim in that pool. It's not important. You're not going to the Olympics. You're not that good anyway. So you need to take that time and put it to work and to study. And I had you up there study, but no, you wouldn't listen to me. So instead of having them feel bad and telling them, oh, you should feel bad, I'm going to say, Robert, you got a D. How is that with you? Are you okay with this D? How does that feel for you? And you might go, the kid might go, Robert might say, oh, well, Not so good. Well, now we've got it. Not so good. Do you have any ideas of what you could do differently, or would you like me to help you get that grade? Give you some strategies to keep your grade up. Or if they say, well, I don't care, then that's a signal we've got to plug them back in. But then if they say, I don't care, we've got to say, well, if the grades don't come up, you don't go to the next grade. Do you care about your friends? Because I see you playing with a lot of them. Well, yeah, well, they're going to be over there, and you're going to be back here. Oh, okay. Would you like some help in improving that grade? So that's a big difference of how to approach it, and that's the conscious discipline way. So all the skills, the 7 skills, the 6 before consequences, are all about an upgrade for you. An upgrade your skill set, a new vocabulary for a new mindset. You need to upgrade your skill set so that you can create a healthy school family based on setting limits without guilt, communicating clear expectations, generating a classroom of helpfulness as opposed to competition. So the 6 skills leading up to consequences, the 6 powers leading up to the power of intention, are all geared to upgrade your skill set so that the consequences you give a child, whatever they may be, are effective. So I hope that clears up this confusion. So again, I'll say, conscious discipline is all about effective consequences. Now, why the power of intention? Why would the power of intention go with the consequences? Well, the power of intention is the most powerful power. Intention, we know now, what you're seeing is research done where you can see actual biophotons coming off the human being. So we actually are beams of light where we shoot off energy and information. And so in essence, we're not just these little solid little beings, we are actually transmitters and receivers of energy at all the times. Now some of you are old enough out there to know this. The rest of you haven't a clue, but you should know this. Is that you had your parent, when we first got television sets, and they had that old antenna sit up there, and my parents would do that. Go, Becky, go hold that antenna. And you'd have to go and hold the antenna, and if you held the antenna, the picture got clear. Well, that should have given us a clue right there. We are receivers and transmitters of energy. Now, eventually we find that it's better to put some aluminum foil up there than have your child stand holding the TV, but the idea is that we are energy and information and we exchange it. Everybody in here knows when someone's intention is false. In other words, they're portraying themselves in a different way. You've had people say, you know, I'm going to tell you this just to be helpful. And then they go ahead and criticize you up and down one side or another. You know that their intention is not to be helpful. The intention is to get you to change your behavior so they feel more comfortable around you. The intention of your significant other in an argument is not to find solutions, it's to win the argument. And we also have felt the intention of a person when they come to us with niceness. And it's not about being nice and loving. We get the sense they want something from us. So we've all been able to sense and feel intention. Intention is a powerful force. Plants feel intention. Way back in the 50s, the guy who created the polygraph test for the FBI, Baxter, Cleve Baxter from the FBI, he hooked up, in kind of a fluky day, he hooked his plants up to a polygraph test. And he says, I hate you, little plant, I'm going to cut you up and tear you apart. But he meant his words, his intention went with his words. And the little polygraph test went, and the plant just freaked out. So from then, that was back in the 50s, we have done an enormous amount of research. And plants feel our intention. I guess that's why we all talk to them. So animals feel our intention. If you have any kind of animal at your house, you know this. We also know that when you intend to come home from work, as soon as you set that intention, the dog goes to the door. and wait. So the dog doesn't hear your car at the end of the street. The dog felt your intention to come home. And tons of research on this with animals. And again, we're growing this amount of research with humans. But it's a power we all need to grasp and start using in a positive way. My intent is for you to be successful. My intent is for you to learn from this consequence. My intent is to help you find another way of doing this differently next time. Look here, that's the energy coming off our hands on your slide. So it's essential when we're dealing with delivering a consequence. Whether you're taking away the child's computer, whether you're doing, they're missing recess, whatever the situation is, you want to be conscious of your intent. Is my intent punitive? Is my goal to make the child feel guilty? Because if I'm doing that, I'm saying feel guilt instead of the angst that's going to motivate you. Another one that I mentioned before is a permissive intent. You'll see a lot now. It's meant to rescue a child so they don't feel the angst. So children are getting everything they want. If they forget their homework at school, their parents run it over. If they forget, if they're at home and they delay doing their homework to the last minute, the parents will rush in and do their homework because, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want my child to get a bad grade. So the goal of this is to shield the child from his or her own discomfort. And again, once we do this, we rob the child of experiencing these consequences. And let me just tell you, the consequence of not turning in your homework when you're 9 is a good one to feel to get the hang of this instead of being 16 and wrapping your car around a telephone pole because you're drunk. I'd much rather have them practice when they're little at reflecting, choosing, and feeling that angst and what it means to turn their behavior and choose again. Then we have the intent to teach, which is to get in touch with these feelings, our inner guidance system, and reflect and foster change. The power of intention is so powerful, we like to believe we're always using it. That my intent in a situation is to solve the problem, my intent is to be helpful. So one way to check ourselves is the power of attention goes with the power of intention. So if my attention is focused on what I don't want, what I want to stop, and what was done wrong, that indicates my intention also is negative. So if I go, oh, my intention is to have a pretty yard, but why are these weeds like this? There shouldn't be weeds on the yard. Well, then that's an indicator that your intention is not to have a beautiful yard. Your intention is to find the yard guy and make him feel like a piece of dirt because it shouldn't be like this. So it's a way for us to catch ourselves. We all want to believe that we're the best of who we can be, and we are. But we also have to be conscious of when we're not so we can come back to our true selves. Consequences are like white light. They really consist of all the other skills combined. And I hope that you can be conscious of your intent as you deliver them to a child. And I hope you're able to utilize the 6 other conscious discipline skills to help the child reach their higher centers of the brain so they can receive that consequence with the intent in which it's given. And may we all then change our behaviors instead of repeat, going, why is this happening to me again? This is our last webinar for this series. I've enjoyed my time with you immensely. And until we meet again, whether it's in a workbook, until we meet again, whether it's in a conscious discipline workshop, whether you like us on Facebook, or whether you just come up to the website and join us kind of energetically there. I wish you well.